All right. So, hello everyone, and welcome to our open course live session. We'll do quick introductions on our end. Please feel free to put in the chat who you are and where you're from. I'll start off. My name is Joe Levy. I am the Associate Vice Provost of Accreditation and Quality Improvement at Excelsior University. That's my day job, but then I moonlight as a member of the Student Affairs Assessment Leaders, and I help run the open course, and I'm one of the teachers. I'll turn it over to CG.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. And we do have people kind of continuing to roll in here, which is fantastic. My name is CG Heiser. After about 15 years of serving in student affairs, assessment, strategic planning, and program review, I decided to take my talents and use them in multiple sectors. And so I've had the experience of doing assessment now in the justice system, in higher education, at associations, and it's been a really fantastic ride that led to me founding Co-Creating Action. So we're a company that helps people translate their data into actionable outcomes. I'll kick it over to Kevin now.
Hello, everyone. It is great to be in space with you all. My name is Kevin Wright. I use him, his pronouns. I am a faculty member for social justice and global diversity at Southern New Hampshire University. And when I'm not doing that, I am doing association work with Shriners International.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So as I said, but as folks keep trickling in, please introduce yourselves. I'm seeing a lot of great folks, a lot of California represented. Appreciate you all. It's kind of early for you all on the West Coast. But thank you all for being here. Yeah, keep sharing who you are in the chat. But here's going to be the overview for our time together. We'll give some history of the course itself. We'll give a module by module breakdown. What would an assessment session be without talking about some data? And then we'll share a little bit more about instructor perspective of us of how you can use the course and things to think, improvements we've made. Then we'll have some wrap up notes and leave it open for Q&A. We are a fairly informal, flexible bunch, so please feel free to put things in the chat if you have questions, if you want clarifications, if we're going too fast, because really we want this to be helpful and informative for you all. Especially for those who maybe aren't familiar with the course and just heard about this or signed up for it. We want to make sure that you get a good idea of what it is and how it can be used. All right. So we'll start off with the storytelling. So this really came about because the Student Affairs Assessment Leaders is a nonprofit organization where we exist to help people doing student affairs co-curricular related assessment. And in 2014, 2015, we were talking about making some resources. And so we pulled together teams of people from across the US. We had, I think 20, 30 some people that were all part of these groups. And we made these like 1 to 2 page PDFs of like what a typical problem is that occurs in the assessment cycle or process, what resources could be, how you can work through it. And we thought these would be great little things. Well, we put it all together and well, what are you going to do with this? Make like a little booklet or put it on our website? And I thought, well, what if we made this into a course? And remember the timing, right? MOOCs were quite a big thing in the early 2010s. And I knew Colorado State, where I got my master's, had been running a couple student affairs MOOCs. And so I utilized my network and reached out and said, hey, would you all want to do an assessment MOOC? They said, that sounds great. So we started working with them. And so 2016 into 2017 is really when we took these PDFs and transformed them into course modules. And so the first version of the course launched in spring of 2017. And it's been going off like gangbusters ever since. The other key thing we did in 2020 was the first time with an institution we actually articulated that it could qualify as prior learning assessment credit for a doctoral program. And since then, there's been a handful of other graduate programs we've been partnering with where they'll include it as part of their curriculum, or that they will weave it in somehow into their program and encourage their students to be taking it. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the course, it is an 8-week experience. There's 8 self-paced modules. There's a discussion board for every module. There's quizzes for modules 1 through 7. There's 2 written assignments, and everything's asynchronous in terms of what's required. So the lecture videos, there's personal takes, all of that is pre-recorded that you can watch whenever you like. We do have some optional live sessions and office hour sessions and presentations so that if you appreciate that engagement with folks in person, that you get that, and that's something you can do. Um, Let me go to the next, and then this gives an overview of what the uh, elements are for the course, but we'll go more in depth module by module. So don't worry, we'll come back to this. But I will share that overall, the course starts February 2nd and ends March 29th. Now, when I say ends, that just means that's the last time you can submit your materials in order to get the badge for the course. What's awesome about the course, as it says here, is that you'll maintain access about forever. Even folks who took the first course in 2017, they still have access. Now, I will say I am not going back and maintaining all those course shells, so there very well could be broken links with those things over time. But since we run this course every year, I always tell people if you want the latest and greatest, just sign up for the new one. And there you'll be. But I mentioned the badge. Let me talk more about that. If you earn a 75% or better on each quiz, which you get 3 attempts, and it'll take your best score, and you get a 75% or better on the written assignment, then as long as you do that before the course ends, you will earn the badge for the course. And both the quizzes are not timed, so it's kind of an open book thing. They're not designed to be tricky. We're not trying to do these to make them super challenging or difficult. It's just a way to test your knowledge and apply the skills that you're learning. So we hope that they're beneficial and helpful for folks. I'll keep an eye on if there's any questions in the chat based on the history and overview, but I want to launch right into the modules and have us talk more about what each step looks like along the way. And I will just reiterate, the course overall runs for 8 weeks, but it is self-paced. And we absolutely have people who rush through it all in week 1, just as we have people who sign up late and rush through it all in the final week. As instructors, we try and move one module at a time and then always kind of look backwards as well, so that as people are coming late to the course, we try and welcome you and make sure you don't feel that you're too late and that you get some engagement. But I will say, for any of you who do rush ahead, we kind of leave you on your own because since we're moving a week at a time and looking backwards, we're not also looking forwards. So I just want to put that out there, but we'll share about the modules in the week by week journey. So I'll turn it over to CG, talk about module 1.
And you're not completely on your own if you rush ahead. We're still available. You can find us. You can come to office hours and ask any questions you want about different modules. I mean, they're structured for each week, but we're still accessible to you. You're not completely alone. So in module 1, something to know about the course is that we really did try to structure the flow of the course to meet the needs of a wide audience of participants. And so with that, we didn't want to take anything for granted. We know that people are coming in from different walks. When we originally started to think about the creation of the course, and I remember way back in the day, I think when Joe and I were designing some of the original modules that have evolved over time, we were really thinking about student affairs practitioners, but now we have people from IR and we have people from not student affairs. We have people who come in and they're like, we really just want a good baseline of assessment. And so this module really helps to establish that, because we're talking about the difference between assessment, evaluation, and research. We're talking about the kinds of questions to answer through assessment work, because they are different than evaluation questions and they are different from research questions. There's also, similar to evaluation and research, the quality of the question that you ask can really dictate how you answer it, the types of methods that you use, the information that you collect. And so we talk a lot about key questions to answer through assessment. We also think about assessment methods to best inform your practice, right? So your questions should be driving your methods. One of my favorite things that would happen when I was nested in student affairs is that someone would come into my office and say, I want to do a survey about. And I was like, all right, that's awesome. And then when they left my office, we were doing 3 focus groups because it was like, well, what are your questions? What are you trying to answer? And picking the method that best aligns with those questions. And we talk about identifying the importance of stakeholders in the assessment process. So these are people who surround the assessment work who might want to engage in different aspects of the process or be collaborators in the process. Then we talk about identifying elements of an assessment culture within student affairs. So a process in and of itself is really robust and really helpful. But when we start to think about it as part of a larger system and structures, then we can start to leverage that process and how we engage in it to build a culture throughout student affairs. Joe, would you add anything? Because I think you're on that module for the course.
No, yeah, it's really just a bit of a high level overview and introduction, especially if you're brand new to assessment, or even if you've been in it for a while, to help further differentiate some of the work going on, and just set the stage then for what's to come. And yeah, the discussion board is a great opportunity to share your background experience and why you're taking the course. So it's a very busy discussion board, but also a really exciting one as we meet different folks who are looking to take the course. And Kevin has module 2.
Yes. So for module two, it primarily emphasizes on assessment planning. So it is very, very crucial for us to think about when we are engaging in different assessment processes and practices and systems and all that jazz. It's important to make sure that we have a plan. Sometimes we have heard a lot of people say, essentially, Kevin, Joe, CG, really want to get into assessment, really want to get involved, really want more assessment experience. However, me and my colleagues just don't know where to start. That's what this module is really going to like guide folks through, because again, there isn't one singular unified way to plan assessment protocols and processes and outcomes. So therefore, you will be given kind of like a high level fundamental guide on how to actually execute assessment planning efficiently within your department, within your unit, within your division, within your entire organization and or company. The fact of the matter is that it's important to make sure that we understand what the desired outcomes are, how we're communicating, how we're implementing accountability structures, how we're understanding who is responsible for what, and then also making sure that we're not losing sight of like why we're even doing this assessment. Some people do assessment to check a box. No shade to those folks. It's just that it's important to understand that assessment is much more than just simply checking a box. So therefore, assessment is transformative work. It's not just simply compliance work. And then therefore we'll also be guiding folks through an exercise on what it means to actually draft an assessment plan for your organization that is applicable to your situation. So that way people are actually getting that hands-on experience, trying something new, trying it out. It might be awkward, it might be weird, it might be even slightly uncomfortable, but that's only because of the fact that you're not used to it. And that is okay. We're here to guide you every step of the way, which is why we want folks to understand how important it is to actually engage in assessment planning as opposed to just diving right in saying like, hey, I want to do assessment and then just doing it haphazardly.
Thanks, Kevin.
Mhm.
So module 3 is my module, and this one gets a little interesting because I think module 1 and 2 are overview and considering how to do the work. Module 3 talks about doing the work, but also really starts to tug on that aspect of inner title of leading student affairs assessment and starts to position you as a coach or a consultant to the work, which I want to be clear that anyone can do that. I know sometimes we get folks who are, graduate students or new to assessment in the course. They're like, oh, this seems so intimidating and I haven't done this work formally. How could I coach or consult? And it's like, you absolutely can because if you know your work, you are great to weigh in on learning outcomes. You're great to think about the approach to measuring these things and if the assessment method is going to be appropriate, because assessment is not something best done alone. It is best done collaboratively. And so this is speaking both to if you are leading assessment and need to do this work across divisions or departments, but also just how to be a good colleague, even within your own department. If your director is leading the assessment efforts and you're just a staff member, these are things you can be doing and how you can be involved and engaging and contributing to the work, even if it's not formally part of your job or not something you've been tasked for. And this is another great way to step up and look to lead even informally in doing the work. So we talk not only about learning outcomes and learning outcome statements and method selection, but also we really lean in on how you can give feedback on those things and things to think about in giving feedback on those things. Because there's a lot to think about and there's many things to juggle and this builds off of the assessment planning component too, because sometimes people will be really eager and want to make a really big assessment plan and try and do many things. And so sometimes you need to remind them and ask, is this manageable? And also, you have 10 different things for this one learning outcome. Do we maybe want to balance it with the other learning outcomes? But also, the opposite can be true, where somebody can have a really small approach and maybe you want to encourage them to think bigger. So, this module does kind of two things. It talks more about elements of the assessment process, but also begins to help build that muscle and capacity around how you can be a good collaborator and offer feedback from a coaching perspective or a consulting lens, regardless of where you sit. And I will say, this is the first module that you have, in addition to the discussion board and the quiz, you have a writing assignment. And we give several examples that mirror the actual writing assignment. So you can see potentially what's expected, how to interpret elements of the rubric, and really see some examples before you actually dig in on the assignment itself. But I always get excited about this because it's great to then see people apply it more than just in a discussion board. And just before I move on, I see the question there. Will you provide templates and materials? Yes, throughout the for each module, we have some kind of required readings, and then we also always have a further learning section where, because we know sometimes people sign up for this course maybe just for one thing. Maybe they're just trying to get started on assessment planning, and so module 2 is their jam, and that's all they're going to spend time on. And so we have a section for every module where it's further learning, and we have tons more readings. So if you really want to deep dive on it, you can. And also we provide examples and resources and templates and websites for other institutions. And if there's ever anything particular for that given module that you want to see more of, that's why we're here. And that's where you can reach out to us and we can share. And also I would encourage you to potentially post that in the discussion board and see what your colleagues that are also taking the course can share.
And Joe, I just want to share a quick human example of Module 3 in practice. When I first started as a director at Western Michigan University, the person who called my office the most was an associate vice provost in her 60s. And she would call me at like 7:30 in the morning. And I was like, good morning. And she would ask me questions. Like she would say things like, hey, I'm trying to get this report in front of the board. It's like 50 pages. Nobody's reading it. What do I do? What can I do differently? And I was like, okay. And just serving as a thought partner with people was such a neat opportunity in that role. I never would have guessed that this woman who had been doing program review and leading accreditation efforts would be the person calling me the most when I started the role. And she was such a great ally in the role and such a great co-conspirator to build a culture of assessment. But it was just hilarious to me that that's the person who, I thought I would be calling her and asking her for guidance, and we did. But that's just one of those ways where you can end up being a coach or a consultant, just by being a good colleague and being open to brainstorming with people and problem solving with people. All right, let's talk now about aligning assessment with institutional priorities. So this is module 4. It's the fourth week of the course. Here in this module, we're going to talk about the importance of that alignment between individual assessment projects and priorities, we're also going to talk about walking that balance of what the institution's doing and staying in lockstep with that while not stalling out on departmental or divisional initiatives. Because sometimes we get stuck in this, like, well, we need to wait to see what the university is going to do before we write our strategic plan, or we need to, but we're not, we don't operate every day in a complete vacuum devoid of knowledge of what's going on at the institutional level or what institutional priorities are. And so there are definitely moves we can make, and we talk about that. Some of the tangible exercises that we're going to engage in Module 4 is differentiating between a mission and a vision statement and the opportunity to draft mission and vision statements. And so that's something that we'll do through the discussion. You will get a lot of feedback on that from myself and anybody else who wants to share their perspective. We'll also talk about key performance indicators that are accurate and effective measures of progress towards strategic priorities and how to navigate that nuance when there's competing priorities or maybe unclear priorities for your department or your division or the institution. And then finally, we'll talk about the role of data visualization and reporting outcomes for your organization. But even a little bit more broadly than that, we talk about just how to communicate data effectively and why that matters depending on your audience.
All right. Module 5 is another interesting one in that this one is really thinking about how we can approach assessment work in general, aside from the nuts and bolts of what the work you're doing, but recognizing the mental model that you are operating from, recognizing the positionality you have in the work and of the people who are involved in the work, and how those things can intersect and how we can both leverage those things, but also work on those things if we have capacity to build or biases to check ourselves on. Um, and so it's a little different in terms of it's a little more, I would say, again, perspective, approach, introspection work, as opposed to nuts and bolts of assessment. But we really try and draw those connections of how this matters and shows up in assessment work and why it's important. Um, and this is one that we have a ton of resources on. And honestly, I think Kevin, CG, and I could do an entire course just on, on this module. So it's a fun one, and there's a lot of good stuff there. And this is another one that we have a written assignment for. And so again, there are examples given that mirror what the assignment prompt is, and also show how we are applying the rubric. And so again, it's a nice follow-up for module 3, so that you've gone through it in module 3, and so then here's another writing assignment. I will say this is one that I know I always get a lot out of in terms of what people contribute and share, and it's also just a space that we can be continually growing and learning and refreshing the resources as more and more stuff comes out here. But it's a personal favorite of mine. And and it's a fun one that also you're just over the hump of halfway through the course, since it's module 5 of 8. So it's kind of a nice check-in point, and I like to cheer folks on as as they're hitting this point and recognize where they are, and to continue to finish strong. But yeah, it's a fun module. I appreciate it. Back to CG.
Okay, this is arguably, after Module 5, this is my other favorite module in the course, because this is where we really talk about bringing data to life. And this is, what I spend all of my time doing now. And so I really mean it when I say this is one of my faves. So the whole purpose of this module is to talk about closing the loop, right? What we do after we've collected the data and we've communicated the information, what happens then? And we'll talk about some different strategies for how to move from data to action. We talk about existing internal data that cross-functional areas might want to use or leverage to support data collection, dissemination, or utilization. So one of the topics that we talk about in this module is where data lives and what data is available to you for decision making. testing. So sometimes it's not always about engaging in the full assessment process and going out and collecting data. Rather, it's maximizing internal data that you already have, maybe in your SIS or in other systems, or using external data as sources of benchmarks or informative baselines for your institution, your metrics. And so we talk about that a bit in this module. We also talk a little bit here. We dip into this module on stats. We don't go too far. So don't, if you're a numbers person in assessment, but you are very weary or leery of statistics, don't be nervous. It's not super heavy, I promise. And so we will talk about and define terms like statistical significance. We'll talk about things like sampling. And we want to talk about these under the guise of understanding data analysis and interpretation to shape credible and actionable conclusions and findings. We're also going to talk about strategies for reporting information across different audiences. We dip into this in Module 4 when we're talking about data viz. This goes a little bit deeper into multiple different strategies beyond visualization that might be appropriate or might help you convey the findings in an effective and engaging manner for your audience. I think we go to Kevin next to talk about Module 7.
Yes, yes, indeed. This is biasedly my favorite module in the course because, again, everybody has a different background when it comes to assessment. And it's important for us to recognize and understand, if not explicitly define, what the culture of assessment even looks like at our organizations and companies. Some organizations have a very healthy culture of assessment where they are doing assessment 10 toes down, left to right, A through Z. Everybody's on board. Everybody loves it. But then in some places, you say the word assessment and you would think that somebody said like, a very inappropriate word, right? And it's because of that misunderstanding or that frustration or that confusion regarding assessment. Sometimes people lead with their assumptions where they think assessment is just surveys and percentages, and it's like so much more than that. Some people have been through unfortunate situations where assessment measures were weaponized against their functional area or even the students that they serve or any other external stakeholders. So thinking about what does it mean to build a culture of assessment? How does one individually contribute to a positive and healthy culture of assessment? How does one navigate an institution where that culture of assessment is still being developed or still trying to be reframed or reimagined? That's what goes on in this module. So that way people understand that as we keep on building through the course from module to module, we understand that what all this is tying into. And the thing is that it's important for us to think about how we are not only creating these systems to benefit ourselves, but to also create systems that produce longevity. So therefore, whatever you're doing today, how can it benefit the folks that will succeed you? Because there will be several others that come after you in your position. So therefore, when you are transitioning to the next role or even potentially retiring, you got to think about how does this system also benefit my successor in the next generation of stakeholders and the next generation of students, et cetera, et cetera. And it all starts with building a stable foundation to that culture of assessment. Is this also me or is it CG? I
Yep.
forgot.
Nope. We're keeping you on the mic.
Okay, sweet. So module eight is a great way to just summarize and bring everything together. Because again, we understand that some people may be here for solely one thing, and that's totally fine. Whereas some people want to take anything and everything that they possibly can from this course. So when we get to module eight is a way for us to understand that, like, okay, now that we've been through all this information and we've had all these discussions and we've tried all these activities and we've learned all these concepts and frameworks, what does it all mean now? There have been plenty of times where people have gone through this course, and when they get to module eight, they're asking the question, okay, Now what? What's my next immediate step? That's what this module is meant to talk about, especially when it means that you are potentially the only person from your institution that is taking this course or your organization taking this course, and then bringing all this information back to your colleagues. What does it mean to actually make those connections, make that next immediate step, start collaborating with folks, start getting in the ears of the senior level executive officers and organizational leaders, and then making sure that you are finding opportunities to justify and also encourage people about why assessment can actually bring more stability and sustainability to what the work is at your organization and how is it benefiting the folks that it's meant to actually benefit, whether that's the students themselves on your campuses or consultants or historically marginalized communities or what have you. The fact of the matter is that it's important to make sure that now that you're taking in all this information, what do you actually do with it? At the conclusion of this course, because we don't want this course to feel like a conference or a convention where you go to a conference or a convention with your notebook or your tablet and you take all these copious notes and then you come back from that conference or that convention and those notes simply stay there and they don't make it to fruition. So in this module, we actually want to give you the tools to actualize your plans and your goals as it relates to assessment.
Sorry, I was starting to talk and was on mute. Okay. So I wanted to be sure and put this in the chat in case folks want more information because we're just going to high level talk about some course data, but we have a whole website with data from the past several years where you can digest it in blog format. You can digest it in 90 plus page PDF format if you choose. But we're just going to cover a couple things here. One, for a MOOC, we have pretty high completion rates. Typically, MOOCs are in the single digits, and as you can see, like we have well over that historically. What I will say, by and large, though, is, and we'll say it repeatedly today, the course first and foremost is a resource. And so I tell people all the time, if you just want a lot of great content, sign up. Even if you're like, oh my gosh, spring is really busy for me, and I don't think I can commit to doing this, but this is really great. Sign up. Because like I said, you'll have access to it after the fact. If you don't participate, you can't get the badge, but you probably don't need the badge. You need the information, right? But I will say, even when we recommend that, right, that we still have pretty high completion rates again for a MOOC. And not only that, but people. Oh, sorry. This is CG to talk about the value too that people see, which I'm excited to talk about, but she can say.
Hi. So when we ask the participants in the course, kind of the impact of the course on them and their feedback on the course, we do use that information. We also do a debrief amongst us as instructors every year to see what updates or flow or assignments and how things went. But we're so pleased when we get information back and it says that participants agree that the course materials had a positive impact, the course activities had a positive impact, and the quality of the course is a 4 out of 5 on a 5-point scale. So we know that while things shift here and there every year, we continue to have a really overwhelmingly positive reviews and feedback from those who engage in the course. And that's really helpful information for us because that's our goal. We want the course to have a positive impact and be a positive resource for people. I think this one's you, Joe.
Yep. And students do well. These are the average grades per quiz. Again, like I said, they're open book, not timed quizzes. They're not designed to be tricky, but you can see people do very well on them, which is great. And also, folks do well on the written assignments as well. Here are the average scores per rubric dimension for rubric 3, or for the writing assignment 3. And so you can see there's elements there where we're looking at like they're reflecting on the learning outcomes, the method for the method that was chosen, considering the relationship that of coaching and consulting, like the relationship of the person you're working with. Did they address all the prompts? Did they cite references, and was the flow fine? I will say you'll see both here and for the next one, references is kind of the lowest piece. And I talk about this in the modules when I give instructions and examples. Please know we are not here, trying to make sure everyone is, using APA citation or a particular like, but more this whole component is just making sure that when you're doing this work and when you're specifically writing your responses for the written assignments, that you're at least giving a nod to what's informing your approach. And that can even just be, as Joe said in the module, or as Kevin highlighted in module 2 about assessment planning, it's important to blah, blah, blah. That's all we're looking for, because we want to know what materials are landing, what materials are helpful, what materials are helping inform your approach. And also, if you are guided by some other really cool resource, we want to know about that too, to maybe incorporate it for the future as well as acknowledge where your personal and professional experience is informing your approach as opposed to materials from the course. But I will say, as people are digging into the assignment, that's usually the area they kind of forget to make a nod towards. So as you can see, it's one of the areas that some folks get some points off. And here's module 5, same thing, that folks struggle the most with the reference piece, but otherwise do really well. And again, that's one, because we give a lot of great resources, and two, we give a lot of those practice example case studies where people can see how to apply this, can help. And if folks are stressed about the assignments, you can always reach out in advance. Happy to answer questions. But just want to make sure and show this because, again, we have positive outcomes, both satisfaction wise, completion wise, as well as from a learning outcome perspective. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
All right. So in regards to the course itself, we try to make sure that we are always providing relevant and timely resources and information to you all. So one of the things that have happened with this course is that we're always taking the necessary steps and intentional steps to make sure that we are providing things to you that are timely and relevant. So with that being said, there is going to be resources from a wide spectrum of different platforms, spaces, expertise, and scholars. So when you are navigating through the course, much of the readings and the resources, we have gone through and audited them, meaning that we have checked links, we have checked to see if the content is still relevant to today. You might see a few things that are referenced from maybe 30 years ago, and you might think that, or assume that, like, wait a minute, this is 30 years old. This is probably not relevant. And the reality is that some scholarship, even 30 years ago, from 30 years ago, is still applicable to today. So depending on how you think about that situation, it's pretty bittersweet. So it's important to make sure that we are providing you all with a diverse spectrum of expertise, scholarship, and knowledge. So that way, when you're bringing this information back to your campuses, people can understand that there is more than one way to go about understanding and applying and sustaining assessment. Also, with the quiz questions and whatnot, the quizzes are not meant to be tricks. The quizzes are simply meant to help you review and understand the information that came from the module itself. So therefore, if you quote unquote fail the quiz, you can retake it. It's totally fine. And also keep in mind that, again, we're not wording them in a way to trap you. We are simply making sure that out of all the information that was covered in the module, are you at least getting these key points, hence why they're covered on the quiz. And then also with the live sessions in the office hours, we are continuing those, and those will be communicated in different ways. So we have it all listed throughout the entire course, through our announcements, through our individual modules. They are strictly optional, so do not feel obligated to attend. And then if there is an opportunity that you see where you would like to attend an office hour but are just not available, do not hesitate to reach out. So last year, at least for me, a lot of people could not make my office hour because it was just not a convenient time for them, which is totally understandable, right? We have people from all over the country, if not all over the world, taking this course. Those folks still reached out to me individually, and I met with folks one-on-one for like 20 to 30 minutes just to hear where they're coming from, and also to still make sure that they felt supported and understood what the content was going over from the course itself. So again, we are here for you as an additional resource. Do not hesitate to reach out to us and let us know how we can best support you. Is this all to me? I forgot. Sweet. Okay. So in regards to this course, please keep in mind that this is an opportunity to learn about student affairs assessment simultaneously. If you work in student affairs and higher education, cool. If you don't work in student affairs and higher education, that's also cool because assessment is a universal concept to many industries. It is not exclusive to student affairs and higher education. But if you are coming from a non-higher ed background and you've thought about it, right? This could also be a resource for you to understand one of several different functional areas that you could serve in if you wanted to come into the field and do some type of transformative work with assessment and student affairs. Also, keep in mind that the content is meant to be high level, fundamental, very introductory. It's not going to take a deep dive into too many things. So if you are navigating through the course and you find yourself telling yourself that like, oh, I already know this, or like, I already learned this in my grad program, or I already knew this because I'm just really smart. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with a refresher. So keep in mind that what may be new to you may not be new to somebody else and vice versa. So again, it's all about just taking all the information in. And then if you do feel like it's feeling more like a refresher, take full advantage of the resources that we do provide in each module because I guarantee there's at least one resource that you haven't read or a podcast episode that you haven't listened to or a YouTube video that you haven't watched that is a part of this course that can provide something new to you. And then there's an opportunity to network with so many people. So last time I checked, and maybe this number has gone up since Joe's email, we have 890 people enrolled, maybe more. Okay. So with that being the case, if you are a person that wants to expand your network, you now have 889 opportunities to do so. Um, and networking looks different for everyone. So please engage with folks in the course, take things offline, share your LinkedIn profile, share your professional email account, your personal email account, whatever works for you, but definitely don't ever feel like you have to navigate this course alone. Even if you're the only person from your organization taking this course, there's still an opportunity to engage and to really just build rapport with so many other folks who are probably going through the same ish as you that you're trying to navigate through as well. So take advantage of the people in this space. And then something else that you can do is that you can also use this as a professional development opportunity. Ooh, 936, awesome. So now you got 935 opportunities to network. So this is an opportunity as well for professional development. So what I mean by that is that if you are looking to strengthen your knowledge or strengthen your skill set, this can be a great tool or resource for that. Also, encourage your colleagues. If you know you're the only person from your organization taking this course, encourage your colleagues to join. It's not too late to sign up. We've seen situations where people will devote maybe 1 to 2 hours a week where they come together as a staff or a team and they're literally going through the module together where they will actually watch the recordings in their board meeting room together as a staff, have a deep reflection about it, and then take the quiz together. Again, it's totally up to you. It could be a group thing, it can be a great bonding opportunity as well as professional development. And then this is not just for student affairs folks. So if you yourself are in academic affairs, welcome and thank you for showing up. If you are non-higher ed, thank you, welcome for showing up. And make sure that you are sharing this course with your networks. I always tell folks that I always try to remind folks that there's not many free professional development opportunities right now. And that's across any industry, especially education. So therefore, take advantage of it. It's free 99, so it's within your budget, right? And therefore, you have lifetime access, so you can always revisit it. And then again, it's a great opportunity to just deepen your learning, regardless of what skill sets you have, regardless of what functional area you're serving in, and regardless of what industry that you are currently working in.
Yeah, to wrap things up, CG.
All right, everybody. What questions do you have for us? We've told you most of what we can think to tell you in an overview format, without walking slide by slide through every course. What questions do you have for us?
As we wait for questions from folks, I put in the chat the link for the open course. That's where you can see we have a copy of our syllabus. We have information about the course. There's side tabs to navigate for data and other things, as well as the direct link to sign up for the course. Also, want to be sure and thank our sponsors for the course: Modern Campus, KnowMeQ, and the James Madison University's Center for Assessment and Research Studies. We can't do this course without them. And also, you'll be seeing that we have some related presentations we'll be doing with them that are assessment related topics that either align with the course overall or also help present some information about other resources, like Kevin was saying, of all right, you finish this course, now what, right? Where else can you dig in and get additional support? And these are great partners to help with that. And seeing the question, Lisa, thanks for that. I commented earlier that generally we've designed the course that you should be expected to spend an hour or two per module. And that bears out in the data. I just said that 61% of the people who took the course last year and finished said that they spent 2 hours or less each week. And 86% of the people who took the course said they spent 4 hours or less overall. So hopefully that helps. I will say that again, the videos that we've talked about, like the lecture videos, they're like 7 minutes. They're not hour-long lectures. So even the lecture content is bite size, and the readings too. We're not giving you books to read. So as Kevin alluded, it really is something that we try and give a flavor and introduction to these topics so that if you're brand new, it's not overwhelming. However, if you are more experienced, as Kevin said, like that's where the further learning section really comes in. And that's where you can really push yourself to do more, learn more, brush up on the topic. As well as if you're an experienced person, hey, we are glad you're here and would value you to be chiming in and the discussion board and helping lend your expertise to the other people who are newer and are craving that feedback and additional perspective. Because again, while we are the instructors, assessment's not one thing. It's not one silver bullet of this is how you do the work. And so we want to hear other perspectives and what's been successful for people for sure.
I just want to add that we are all three having written and presented with both of these humans and spent time with you in person and virtually, we are all big believers in the benefits of collective wisdom. We are not here to have a top-down approach to your learning. That's why we are such strong encouragers of the discussion board and the office hours, because we want you to have the opportunity to engage with the almost 1,000 other people who are in your community now in this course. And so please don't hesitate to say, have you thought about adding this resource? Or I'd love to share more about this topic. Like we love to create space for collective wisdom to be shared and conveyed because we believe there's so much power and so much opportunity in that collective space.
I will also say, just to give ourselves grace, things change sometimes quickly and without our notice. And that is me owning that there have been times where, as Kevin said, I promise we check links for things. We do, I promise. But there are absolutely times where we check everything, like in November, we're like, yep, check everything. My modules are good, 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 good. Well, guess what? In December, some institution changes their website or some reading changes where they're hosting it. And so links can break. And because we cannot constantly monitor all of the links, to CG's point, we very much appreciate your perspective too, or saying, hey, by the way, I was here and this is broke. Can you please don't hesitate to do that. we're not asking you to do the labor for us. I promise we check these things at one point, but stuff happens in this digital age, and we want to make sure you have those resources. So please, we welcome that feedback. Should that happen, and appreciate you all, again, being part of the community to help support the learning experience.
Can I also add that with the national landscape, people have taken down so much content from their websites or taken down websites entirely. And so, again, although we're checking, the national landscape is changing in a way that we're more reactive than we are reflective, typically in the course to stay on top of that. And while good things are happening in the national landscape that might reverse some of those changes, snaps for that. But the reality is, again, we're sort of playing catch up and playing tag to see if information isn't where it used to be. So again, please just let us know. We can go ferret it out and get more links up.
Yeah. Um, One of the questions came in of how is student affairs connected with career services? I think I speak for the other instructors in that, one, just big picture, this course is about assessment practices. While the title says student affairs, I actively promote this to faculty because there's so much content in here that's applicable to academic affairs assessment too. But I would also say we're using the student affairs term pretty generally. It should be inclusive of co-curricular activities. And I would say we would absolutely consider career services applicable and under this umbrella of what this content can apply to. So if you are oriented towards career services, we welcome you because the content that you get into here will be applicable towards that work. We even, as part of the discussion boards, we encourage folks to join these optional discussion groups so that instead of being in a discussion board with thousands of other people, you're maybe in a discussion board of like 50 people or 100 people dedicated to that functional area. And so we have an area dedicated to career services and like-minded offices that you can, and all those functional area groups are opt in, opt out. So you can even switch if you want to explore the different ones or contribute to multiple for sure. Um, and then Chevelle, and sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, but AI is not something we explicitly cover like as a module, but I know I talk about it in modules 3 and 5, especially as people are turning in their assignments, because I will see some bad usage of AI where it's just like a straight copy paste where like they even have their prompt included. And so at least in giving grading feedback, I give advice on how to use AI, but it's also something that I cover in some of my office hours because again, given that there's written assignments for my modules, I want to talk about responsible use there. But yeah, we can absolutely. I would hope the other instructors too wouldn't shy away from the topic as we talk because I absolutely think AI has a time and place and can help with assessment work, just as it can help with other pieces of work. But I think it's about how you are using it and how you are going about your approach with it, for sure. Any other comments, questions from folks? As I give a moment for that, again, our contact information has been sitting up here, but want to plug for student affairs, assessment leaders in general. As an organization, we have many other, the course is just one of the resources we offer. We have webinars that we do, we have a journal, we have blog posts, many other things on the website that you can check out. And also for folks who, would like to learn more and appreciate the webinar format, the next SAL structured conversation is on leading with empathy. It's going to be on February 5th, so right around the corner. So y'all can make sure and check that out if you want. I want to make sure and plug that. I'll go back to our emails as we look to close out here. So any final questions, comments? Really glad to see so many folks here and hope to see you in the course. And spread the word. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Hey, Joe.